Hello musicians, I will be talking about some tips and tricks for beginner to intermediate players today. I will mainly be talking about woodshedding, vibrato, and basic musicality. When we talk about woodshedding in music, we're not talking about actual wooden sheds. We're talking about a type of practice where you try to learn everything perfectly. You want to do this with sections of music rather than a whole piece of music because it makes it very difficult to get through the entire piece. The first thing you want to do is you want to mark up the entire music with whatever your counting method is. You can use numerical counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, or the do-that-dit method. I will explain these all in later videos. After you do that, what you want to do is you want to look through the music, make sure there are no difficult notes or articulations, and if there are, you want to write those in. It's also important to note that with a woodshed, you are not playing any of the grace notes, the trills. You're also not playing dynamics or articulations. The main point of a woodshed is to practice and learn just the notes and the rhythms. Once you finish writing down your counting method and all the notes that are tricky for you, you then want to play the first measure and end on the first note of the second measure, and then play the second measure ending on the first note of the third measure. And you want to do that for every single measure in the piece. And then, once you're done with that, you want to do 3 measures at a time ending on the fourth note. The reason we do this is we want to make sure that our fingers can get to all the places, but we want to do it in manageable chunks. This might seem very tedious, but it's also really worth it. I have done this with many pieces, and it makes it way easier to learn how to play really fast. Depending on the length of your piece, you might want to do this again, but in bigger chunks, like maybe 10 measures if it's really long, or just in chunks of phrasing. Once you decide to start playing the thing in full, I want you to play with a metronome to make sure that you're playing in time, because we can build up bad habits of rushing parts really easily when we don't play with a metronome. Make sure you're taking it a little bit under tempo. Once you can play this thing perfectly twice at that tempo, you can take the tempo up, or you can start adding dynamics, articulations, and grace notes. Now I want to talk about vibrato and basic musicality. Something that's very important in solos and also in auditions is knowing how to do vibrato and also musicality, because you don't want to play something like a robot. When you play like a robot, you're basically just playing exactly what the piece wants you to play, but there are extra things we can add on there to actually make it sound like music. Vibrato is very important. It's kind of hard to explain, but vibrato is like moving in a note. Like, instead of playing a note like, we play like, now that might have sounded really bad, but it'll sound a lot better when we put it into music. For example, let me show you the first phrase of my all county solo, Sonata Movement 1. Don't know how to pronounce the name. That's without any musicality, without any vibrato. Let's do it again with some vibrato. As you can see, that sounded a lot better. So how do we do vibrato? Basically with vibrato, what you want to do is you put your instrument in your mouth like normal, and you just go like this. Like you're eating something. Then you want to start adding that to the longer notes in your pieces, but you want to make sure that you're not over exaggerating your vibrato, because that can sound kind of cheesy or corny, and it doesn't sound very good. Like, let's say if I were to play it like this. As you can see, that sounds pretty bad. So, we're not going to do that. And if you notice that you can barely hear your vibrato, this is what my instructor told me when I had trouble with it. Move your mouth as much as possible, and then adjust from there, instead of playing as softly as you can with the vibrato, and then trying to get louder. It works better the opposite way. Like, I used to play kind of like, but what you really want to do is from there, you want to do that over-exaggerated playing so you understand that what you're doing isn't too extreme. You understand that you are actually doing it very quiet, almost in a sense. It's not very noticeable. And once you start to play it super exaggerated, then from there you want to take it down. I hope that made sense. Now, other things that you can do that'll make your music sound more musical is you can change dynamics and sort of direction. Direction's kind of hard to explain, but like it's a mixture of changing the dynamics slightly and the intensity. When I talk about intensity, I'm talking about kind of like how a marcato is more intense than and short. Kind of like how an accent is more exaggerated and more dramatic, more intense than a regular note. Kind of like that. And I don't mean that you want to articulate, I just mean that you want to make it more intense without the articulation if it's slurred. I'm not really sure how much that made sense, but we'll see. I'm gonna show you an example from the same solo I just did later in the piece and how you can make it more musical. I'm gonna play first without any musicality, without any vibrato, and then I'm gonna add it all in. As you can see, we can do better than that. As you can see, I exaggerated parts of it, I changed the dynamics, and I changed the intensity. That's basically what we want to do, especially in solos and in auditions. You can do this in band, but you don't want to do it as extremely, because then if everyone's doing it as extreme as they can be, it's going to sound super strange and messed up, because everyone's playing it completely differently. If you guys have any questions, put them in the comments, and I will try to answer as many as I can. I am always pretty busy, but I will try to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'll ask my band teachers for you. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe if you liked it. If you didn't, I don't care.